I'm pleased to welcome back Admiral Mark Montgomery, retired United States Navy. He is from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, where he is a senior director. He's also running something called CSC 2.0, keeping alive the cyber solarium. Admiral, welcome back. I hope you're having a good Monday, are you?
I am, sir. Thanks for having me.
So, Admiral, let's begin with the Houthis. They're back on the terror list. What does that matter?
It matters, first of all, because they should have never been off of it. Within a month of coming in office, the Biden administration took them off of it. The Houthis are a terrorist organization that has terrorized the people of Yemen and their neighbors for decades. But very specifically, over the last 18 months, they've been attempting to cut off seaborne transit through the Red Sea by firing hundreds of ballistic and cruise missiles and drones into merchant shipping. The United States Navy, with a handful of allies, but really the United States Navy, has been aggressively engaged over the last 16, 17 months in shooting down these missiles and an extraordinary but expensive undertaking.
Admiral, I was told by an active duty naval officer that the Eisenhower, a ship on which this officer did not serve, was awarded the first combat ribbon for a Navy ship in forever. Because the Ford might follow and the Lincoln might follow, and I think the Truman's there now, but the Eisenhower got it. So it's real, actual combat. I don't know that Americans understand that.
No, you're exactly right. The Combat Action Ribbon is being awarded to the Carrier Strike Group. So it's the destroyers and other ships, oilers, and the aircraft carrier involved in this, and the air wing on board the carrier. And look, this is serious. We have had hundreds of missiles fired in the vicinity, most of them in the vicinity of our Navy ships. We engage those, and we engage the ones we believe are headed towards a merchant ship or an allied naval ship. And we've shot down ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, drones. Some of them, though, have actually been engaged in the very last moments of flight by our close-in weapon system because of either challenges we had or identification problems we had. So there have been some close calls here, and the Navy's learned a lot from this. They've probably expended nearly $1 billion worth of ammunition in the Red Sea and in the Eastern. You got to add the Eastern Mediterranean in there, and the defense of Israel against Iranian attacks. But together, those amount to nearly $1 billion worth of weapon systems.
So what do we do about the Houthis? They made an announcement, and it might be part of the Ayatollah Khamenei, supreme leader of Iran, saying, hey, proxies, let's not take on the United States when Trump's president. Or it might be that they run out of missiles. I don't know, but what do we do about them?
Well, first, I'll tell you what we should have done over the last 15 months. We practiced something called deterrence by denial for the last 15 months, which is we shot down things headed to us, and we did very limited strikes against Houthi missile facilities, command and control facilities, stowage facilities. We should have, if you want to practice deterrence against the actual adversary, which in this case is Iran, because Iran will certainly fight the United States to the last Houthi. We needed to actually strike Iran. We needed to strike their port facilities where weapon systems were shipped to the Houthis. We needed to either seize or sink the spy ship, and we needed to strike their weapons production facilities. We did not practice deterrence properly. I think the threat of President Trump right now is a deterrent, and that's why you see these actions. But the Iranians are a crafty group, so I'll be very surprised if the Red Sea weapons engagement zone stays cold for very long.
All right, when it gets hot again, what do we do?
Strike Iran.
All right.
Don't mess around.
That's what I thought. I'm glad to hear it from you. I'm a civilian, but you know what you're talking about, so I'm with you on that. Second question, Russia, Ukraine. What do you expect out of General Kellogg in the effort to bring some kind of a ceasefire operation into effect in the Russo-Ukraine war?
So I do like these initial steps. I am one of those retired officers who's in favor of supporting Ukraine, and personally, I've gone there and trained their senior officers on certain things in a pro bono basis. But I will say, I like how President Trump and particularly General Kellogg have stepped into this, which is to castigate Putin, to call him out. for a failed policy and, by Putin in Ukraine. I think the next step is some pressure. I've read The Art of the Deal. Art of the Deal has some great lines in it about, negotiate from a position of strength. I think the president has all the tools to do that. The first and the best ones are tools he loves. Drill, baby, drill. Pressure on the Russian shadow fleet, that group of ships that are going around and delivering fuel to China and India. In other words, sanction the facilities and the companies that receive that oil, not just the ones transporting it. And then, of course, work with our friends, the Saudis, to control global oil and natural gas prices to put pressure on Russia. Russia's extraction prices in Siberia and the permafrost are higher than Saudis, and the Saudis can help us put a lot of pressure on the Russians.
Admiral, we got a lot of Steelers fans listening, so we're going to have to break that down slowly for them. Why does drill, baby, drill and Saudi Arabia have anything to do with the Russia-Ukraine war? I get it, but we do have to take care of the Steelers fans.
My old boss, Senator McCain, used to, avert something along the lines of, Russia is a nation state masquerading as a gas station, or a gas station masquerading as a nation state. Either way, what he meant was a disproportionate amount of the money that drives the Russian economy comes from their sale of oil and natural gas, of fossil fuels. And therefore, if you can lower that price so that it gets down towards the extraction or the cost of withdrawing that oil and natural gas from the ground, shipping it, processing it, and getting out, in their shadow fleet, then Putin doesn't get any benefit from that, and he doesn't have a lot left in the tank. There's not that many oligarchs left to push off the 17th floor and grab their resources, right? So he doesn't have that. If he doesn't have the oil and natural gas, his current government spending is 45 to 50% on defense. So
Wow.
if you take away government money coming in, it will immediately impact. He'll have two choices: either stop all services to his population, which isn't good for an authoritarian regime, in terms of, they usually buy the support of their people, or stop defense spending. Either both of those cause him to come to the negotiating table chastened.
Admiral, I've seen the casualty figures. They're staggering. I don't know what to believe. What do you think are Russian casualties?
So we have to be careful here. There's casualties. Sometimes we talk about casualties like 55,000 Americans in Vietnam. That was killed in action. So they're killed in action, I think, is in the hundreds of thousands, 200 to 300,000, maybe closer to 200, but still a pretty big number. But their significant injured adds up. That's where you get the British Army's reporting of 600 to 700,000. And I'll just tell you, having lived in the Soviet Union previously during the Afghan war, I don't think they've changed how they run veterans affairs, how they run the treatment of their military when they come back wounded. So if you're one of those 300 or 400,000 that was severely wounded, it's going to be a challenging time for you and your family. So there's 700,000 families grieving, either due to the loss or the significant wounding of a service member in Russia.
Admiral, how long can Russia do that? And how long can Ukraine take whatever is the reciprocal number of casualties, both KIA and wounded?
So Ukraine's casualties are significantly lower by a factor of 3 or 4, I think.
Wow.
However, their population is smaller by a factor of 10, not 10, 7, So this is tough. This is tough math. You have two economies and populations and, the societal resiliences barreling along towards failure. And the question is, which one fails first? I think both of them have, late 2025, early 2026 is problematic times. Now, the Ukrainians can solve theirs a little bit by drafting. He's been holding off on drafting the real youth, the 18 to 25-year-olds. I think President Trump is going to, as part of his pressure campaign on Putin, tell Zelensky he's got to draft the youth as well, the 18 to 25-year-olds.
A quick exit question, Admiral. President threw out 5% GDP for NATO. That would include us. How many years would it take us, even if we were serious, to get to 5% GDP?
So we're at 3% right now. I've discussed this before. We fall and rise usually at about 0.1% a year. So I think absent a very demanding, some unusual incident, it's going to take us about a decade to get to 4%. about a decade to get to 5%, another decade after that. Now, obviously, you can change that dynamic and you can get back to 5%. Our traditional Cold War spending in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s.
Well, I hope we get there. I hope we get there faster rather than slower. Admiral Mark Montgomery from the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thank you, Admiral. Talk to you again soon.